Terrible. Well, you know what is also terrible is the lies of the food packaging companies and what they're allowed to get away with. So what we're going to go over in this quick little training that I did is just some things to look out for. This isn't an exhaustive list, and I also want to preface this with you don't have to be like afraid of food and turn into like a food label mongerer. But I just wanted to call out a few things that you'll see pretty commonly, so that you can see through the lies of the food and packaging companies. Um, without turning to the dark side and becoming a ingredient worry wart because that's the other side of the coin that we don't want to go. So, um, first one, high protein. The serving size a lot of times is, and there's going to be a separate one on serving size, but what companies will do in marketing is they come up with a new term that is a new mechanism. So because this is super chunk, that kind of makes you think, oh, that's why it's higher protein. The word super chunk swings right on into the 7 grams. So it's almost like that hidden mechanism swings you into the benefit. So 7 grams of protein, which you're like, oh, peanut butter, high protein, great. Um, but we know that 2 tablespoons, which isn't a lot of peanut butter, is 190 calories. So one of the things you always want to look out for when something markets itself as high protein is, okay, what's it going to cost me? Specifically on the calorie side of things, but this is a good example. If something says per serving, what it's trying to do is minimize the amount of calories or macronutrients something has. Um, and so, in like I said, in that branding and that marketing, the super chunk is the mechanism. We'll probably see some other example ones. It might say like they're tastefully toasted. Oh, well, that's why they're all natural. And so we'll get to natural in a second, but this is one that's actually pretty crazy. So serving size. Um, have you ever looked at a serving size of like whipped cream or olive oil? A lot of times it says 0 calories. How is that possible? How can you have 0 calories and be olive oil? I should have put that Anakin scene in there as well. So the FDA allows food labels to round down. And with packaging, even like let's say a bag of chips is 200 calories, they allow for a 20% range in that. So if a serving has 5 calories, it can be less than 5 calories, it can be listed as 0 calories. If it has less than 5 grams of fat, it has or 0.5, it has zero. And so olive oil is 120 calories per tablespoon. But if they define a serving as 1/4 of a second spray, ah, we're good. It's 0 calories. But in reality, it's 2 calories or more depending on how long you hold the spray. I made eggs earlier today, and you better believe that was like a 10-second spray. I was just like I had a freaking bear in front of me and I was macing it. So that obviously is going to account for calories, but people don't think of that. They're like, oh, I made eggs. How many calories is an egg? It's this. My thing says 0 calories, but in reality, no one sprays for just 1/4 of a second, and a few sprays, just a few seconds of spraying rather, could very easily equal 40, 80, 120 calories. So just because it says it's calorie free, you got to look at the serving size.
That's a question for you, Paul. For I don't want to go off track. It's like when you're making eggs. Is there an alternative that is better? Because you got to lube up the pan somehow, or is that kind of the best?
I just try and be quick with it.
Yeah,
The alternative would be actual olive oil, which is probably easier to use a lot of, or butter, which is another route that you could go. But I would just quick spray,
yeah.
uh, get in, get out. Um, I mean, I guess you could boil the egg, which wouldn't include anything, but sometimes you want them scrambled. I'm just gonna pull up my son on our Nanit to make sure he doesn't wake up from his nap because I am on. There we go. Cool. So natural, right? All natural, natural ingredients. What does natural natural mean? I can tell you there's nothing natural about Lay's, but it's thick cut country barbecue, right? So the word country, we're like, oh, country people are kind, they're nice, they're honest, so they're getting some of that country element in. Thick cut, right, means that it is hearty, great taste guaranteed. What does that mean? But that's how they get you. So, um, Lay's all natural, typically marketed as having no artificial flavors, preservatives, or MSG. The ingredient list is going to be just potatoes, oil, and salt versus regular Lay's, which is gonna have artificial additives, flavor enhancers, and preservatives. Um, the big thing here at the end of the day is they're both 150 calories per serving, and that's essentially what gets people to overconsume. It tastes really good in how it's prepared, so it's very easy to eat more than the recommended serving size. But if you eat, this is 8 times 150, like that's how I would look at it. How many servings? And this is 150, so this is going to be 1,200 calories for the bag. And if you're living by yourself, that's 1,200 calories for you, right? Your dog didn't eat half of it. My wife, sometimes I'm like, oh, she probably had a few bites. Like it wasn't just me. Um, but at the end of the day, like that's what causes the body to be in a surplus. It's not that it's natural or not natural. And so all natural was a label used by Lay's in the early 2010s. You'll see other companies and brands use it. But they actually had uh, one regular line once customer demand shifted and lawsuits over the term natural made companies back away from using it. But this was Lay's. There's still other companies that will say all natural. So we'll actually I'll have some slides that are like here's the like natural base ingredients of food. If it was all natural, you'd be having a potato. So that's kind of a way to think about natural is like, did it come from the eyes or did it have eyes at one point or did it come from the earth? There's no baked potato tree or not baked potato, there's no potato chip tree, but potatoes do come from the earth. This is a great one. Made with real chicken. So this would be like if I was in the room with you and it's like I'm hanging out with Baron. There's a lot of other things in the room, but Baron's also in the room. So you'll see things packaged. Simply Truth Organic, right? Like simply, simple, truth, organic. The entire brand is made to make you think, oh, this is the most honest, truthful, simple, organic product. But it's chicken nuggets in animal shapes. So, um, USDA and FDA requires ingredients to be listed in descending order. As long as the chicken appears somewhere in that list, it can be made with real chicken, right? Made with and made of. So that's a big distinction. Made of 100% or 100% chicken. That would mean it's the primary ingredient. Whereas this actually pulled up the nutrition facts. So this is 160 calories per serving for 15 grams of protein. So that's actually below a 10-to-1 ratio. Chicken breast is a 5-to-1 ratio. So you're getting half the calories of this 160 other calories outside of chicken. So that's like if you're going to Chick-fil-A, for example, or you're going out to eat, or you're having really anything other than like the chicken breast, there are other things beyond just the protein that you're getting. It actually had a 35 out of 100 food health score, despite not having antibiotics or added hormones ever. This is actually a funny one that I'll share with you guys later. You should never have chickens with added hormones or steroids ever. So they make a little note in the fine print here that it is prohibited to put steroids, but they don't do it. So that's good. So this means they could basically say like no Tyrannosaurus Rex is harmed in the making of these dino nuggets. It's like, oh, okay, well, I'm glad that's the case. Um, we're organic, right? So this penguin saying that it's organic, we're delicious, right? I could go over a number of these vegetarian fed diet. So these are not carnivorous chickens, which is good to know. They didn't eat any raccoons. Um, so anyway, lots of funkiness going on with this one, but minimum standards. So the USDA has a minimum standard for specific products like chicken nuggets, but for many processed foods, chips, ramen, frozen meals, the threshold made with real chicken is simply that chicken is present regardless of quantity. Next one, net carbs. This one's really interesting. So total carbs is all the carbohydrates from the food that you're having. Net carbs is when you subtract out um, fiber, essentially, and it's just reflecting the carbs that actually impact your blood sugar. So insoluble fiber found in vegetables pass through undigested, almost no calories. Whereas soluble fiber in oats, beans, um, what's another example of a soluble fiber? Maybe like fruit. right? That is going to get fermented in the gut, and it actually does have calories with it. So when you are having something that is, let's say, four net carbs, that doesn't mean that you subtract out this fiber and subtract out the calories. It's still 70 calories per serving. But at the same time, fiber is, something that's important to get and help with digestion. So something that you can look for in the food that you're getting. This one cracked me up as I was researching this. So no added hormones, steroids, or antibiotics ever. Federal regulations prohibit the use of hormones in chickens. So they're saying no one was harmed in making this. It's illegal to kill someone. Oh, well, okay. Well, I'm glad that no one was harmed in making this. Um, so there's a bunch of others that you could go and look. You could get into the weeds of organic versus not organic. I would actually argue not organic is just as fine as organic. Again, the way I would think about it is calories are like the king, but food quality is the queen. Depending on the country you live in, one is more important than the other. So you can have 2,000 calories, but if it's all of Twinkies, that is designed to be highly palatable. So you're going to want more Twinkies. It's going to be hard to stick with that. It's also going to be nutrient deficient in that there's not a whole lot of vitamins and minerals in the Twinkies versus 2,000 calories of fruits, vegetables, and everything that we'll cover um, here. And so that's where food quality helps to make sure that you actually feel full, you feel satiated, because the stomach is going to send signals to the brain saying, hey, we have the nutrients that we need. If you have a maple bar, that's 400 calories. That tastes great. That's my favorite uh, dessert, probably of all time. I'm hungry 10 minutes after, and I want another maple bar. And a big part of that is because it's designed to taste really good, and there's nothing in it that's necessarily filling. So boil it back down to the basics. Proteins, carbs, fats, and alcohol is also technically a macronutrient. There's just nothing nutritious about it. So you can kind of just call it a macro as opposed to a macronutrient. Proteins, 4 calories per gram, carbs, 4 calories per gram, fats, 9 calories per gram. Alcohol has 7 calories per gram. So if you look ever at a beer, it'll say 120 calories and it might have six or three or a small amount of carbs. So it does have some carbs in it. The rest of those calories are coming from alcohol macros. Um, man, got really bad sinus right now. So give me a second. Um, Lean proteins. So we're going to go through examples of all those, all these different foods real quick. So lean protein is a source of protein that is low in saturated fat. You guys are going to have this video and this document, but beef, bison, seitan, pork, lamb, edamame, Greek yogurt, chicken, cottage cheese, tofu, turkey, low fat cottage cheese. So lean protein just means that when you look at the percentage of calories, majority of them are going to come from protein, right? You could have 20/80 beef. A leaner version of that would be 90/10, 93/7, 95/5. Starches, complex carbohydrates, fiber, glycogen, starch are made up of three or more sugars bonded. That's not necessarily the important thing. The important thing is that you can kind of identify, okay, resistant starches are beans, brown rice, green bananas, lentils, cereal, oats, potatoes. They take longer to digest, and so they lead to a more gradual release or increase in blood sugar compared to simple carbs. So when this is consumed, your blood sugar is not going to spike through the roof. Whereas when we get to uh, certain fruits or even really just anything high, um, not high sugar, but like a simple, easy digest carb that's not a starch, that's what's going to cause the blood sugar to spike and then come back down. So then we get into non-starchy vegetables. So these are still fiber. These are great. They're carbohydrates, but low in calories and do not spike, do not cause a spike in your blood sugar. So as not tasty as some of these are, you can just snack on Brussels sprouts, broccoli, um, asparagus, and really not have any repercussions. again, it's not going to be the tastiest thing, but on the flip side, like a cucumber, if you have pickles, you're basically having 0 calories and you can snack on that. So it's a little bit tastier. A lot of times, if you get this stuff pickled, it's a little bit easier to snack on that way. Dairy, so vast category of products made of animal milk, cheese, butter, curd, ice cream, yogurt. So all of this is dairy. Kefir, yogurt, sour cream, whipped cream, ice cream, all dairy products there. Those are going to be typically higher on the carbohydrate side of things. Now, if you have 2% fat, 4% fat, full fat, whatever milk, that's going to have a higher percentage of fat. That'll bring the calories up. But I think a big thing here is that dairy, in and of itself, is going to be a carbohydrate and produce a lot of sugar. So that's something that, um, when you're looking at food labels, if like let's say you're getting milk, just be aware that's where a lot of the calories are coming from. Whereas on the flip side, cheese, that's going to be a lot heavier on the fat side of things and protein. Honestly, dairy is a good mix of all three. It's just hard for some people to process it, myself included. Fruits. So they come from a flowering part of the plant, contain seeds. In contrast, vegetables are edible parts of the plant, such as leaves, stems, roots, and bulbs. So, kind of a fun fact there. Fruits are the flowering part of the plant. So you might have the let's see here. What's a good example? You might have raspberries. The skin of the raspberry is actually going to be where you're getting the fiber. So a lot of the skins around the seed is what is actually having the fiber. So a lot of times, if you can try and have the skin, orange, another example, right? Everyone kind of peels the little white stringy things off those mandarin oranges. That little stringy skin outside of it is where a lot of the fiber is. Macro Venn diagram. So I've shared this a few times. I can share it again as like an individual image below this in school, but it's kind of just a fun way to look at carbs, fats, protein, and look at the intersection of them. And then basics of nutrition labels. So number one, this is the serving size. So it dictates the measurement tool. Two is the amount of calories per serving. Total fat is going to be right up here. Saturated fat, trans fat bottle up into here. And so you'll note 4 grams, well, 1.50, where the other one's coming from. Um, it could be a rounding error with all of this. I would actually be curious, now that I'm talking about this, be interesting to look into is what are the rules for if they need to put in polysaturated or monosaturated um, inside of it. But 5% daily value for your total fat, but if saturated fat's 8%, then this is skewing higher on that side. Cholesterol, I don't think every food label puts cholesterol, but cholesterol will be called out. Something to be aware of if you've got high cholesterol, sodium, carbohydrates, and then, as I mentioned earlier, what percentage of it is coming from fiber and sugars, protein, and then the uh, micronutrients that they have a high percentage of, they'll put in here. If something's at like 1%, they're not going to put it in this lower amount. Um, Boom. Yeah, so that's everything there. Thoughts or questions on the food labels?
I remember see this. I might have like things like Fairlife milk and now like Dairy Gold has pit milk with added protein. Is that kind of like a frankenfood or is that just a process of, like making or the filtration of that milk that makes it?
Say, I know exactly what you're saying. Say the brand again.
There's Fairlife and then like Dairy Gold has a competitor now, which is another milk company.
Yeah.
Same kind of macros.
Yeah. No, so it's not necessarily Frankenfood. The one thing that I would be curious about, I can't remember the exact term. Um, But a lot of protein powders get away with saying they have a higher amount of protein in them despite not having a full amino acid like profile. So like all of the essential amino acids. So if you want to send one to me, I'd be happy to look into it. But I think that's where sometimes brands are able to get around and say, hey, we have a higher amount of X, Y, and Z, but it's not a complete chain. Now,
Interesting.
it could totally be fine, and they're basically just loading it up in the processing of the food, but that
Yeah.
would be an interesting thing to look into.
Okay. I was just curious if you knew offhand.
Yeah,
I'll look into it.
um, let me see if I can look something up. Yeah. Yeah, send that to me and I can go and look into it. Cool. I got the little man waking up on his nap thing. So I'm gonna go pick him up before he starts crying. I'll drop this inside of school and then we can keep the discussion going there.
Cool. Thanks,
Cool.
Paul.
All right.
Sounds good. Thank you.